Convener for Unison and speaking on behalf of the Public Services Alliance today. I'm just doing a short introduction and then we'll chair the rest of the session. And can I just say what an absolutely brilliant turnout today. A huge show of strength. Today, 1 million people are on strike across this country. All regions region have been absolutely solid. We have shut down workplaces across the region, and we've delivered a strong, loud message to government that public sector workers are being treated disgracefully. We've had years of pay freezes, years of job losses, and years of harsh austerity measures, and enough is enough. Nearly 500,000 local government workers don't even earn a living wage. There is enough money to pay workers a decent wage. We send a strong message today, and it's important that we continue to work together as trade unions with councillors and politicians against this pay restraint, and today is the start of this. Our region have a proud history of working through the Public Services Alliance, and we must continue to do so, because we cannot have any more attacks on us, people who deliver core essential services. And on that, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Chris Dukes from the GMB. To give him a warm welcome.
Earlier this week, the trade unions have been trying to get the negotiations with the local government employers, and have even gone to the stage of getting ACAS involvement. Yet the employers have turned around and accused the trade unions of trying to reopen negotiations. Well, colleagues, that's what we do. That's why we're trade unionists, and it tells you where the employers are at the moment. The fact that it's a take it all and nothing left in the pot, and frankly, it's a Victorian mill owner's way of operating. That's where the local government employers are today. Today we've got over 1 million council workers, school support staff, teachers, civil servants and firefighters out in action today. It's the second biggest day of action since the end of the Second World War. That's the scale of the issue. Our members tell us that they've had enough. 500,000 local government workers are below the living wage. And they didn't even get George Osborne's paltry £250 pay award a number of years ago. Local government have never got that. It's a paltry award, but it's better than nothing. Yet he's taken it off local government, and the employers have backed him up on that. Our members are fed up with local government employers and ministers telling us that we must subsidise those on the minimum wage. The cost of living has gone up twice what the employers are offering. That's the scandal of the UK today. And yet ministers and Tory MPs are getting an 11% pay rise. And we've had the scandal of the last couple of weeks of Tory threats to trade union members for taking lawful and democratic industrial action. What they're telling us is that they're going to attack our democratic rights next year if, for God forbid, they're in the general election. Turnout and trust in public elections and in people at the top has never been lower. So our message to them is, if you want to put a threshold on ballots, use yourselves as the first test. And there could be no more demonstration of hypocrisy than the Prime Minister David Cameron, the master of spin, the man who thinks a 26-2 defeat in Europe is a victory. No doubt he'll be telling the Brazilian Football Federation that they won the other night. He perhaps needs a lesson in numeracy. In summary, colleagues, over 1 million are in this coalition today, the biggest dispute, or the second biggest since the Second World War. Our members are telling us that local government employers have lost the plot, and the government have lost all moral authority. So we say to our members, and we say to you today, keep fighting, stand together. This is about fair pay rise. It's about your human rights. Thank you very much, colleagues.
Thank you very much for that, Chris. Our next speaker is the PCS President. It is Janice Godrich, and I'd just like to have a warm welcome for Janice, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. And first of all, can I just bring solidarity greetings from PCS to your rally today. not just to all of us here in the public sector, but to all working class people. And I'd just like to say, the thing I think we need to be absolutely clear about is today's action is not how it's being portrayed currently in the media, about separating private sector workers from public sector workers. This is about a fight for fair pay for all workers, whether you work in the public and the private sector. Colleagues, I work for the Department of Work and Pensions. I'm the National President of PCS, and like members in my union, I've been on a pay freeze for the last 5 years. But I work in a department that aims to denounce people who are unemployed or disabled as scroungers in society. Well, let's be really clear. The real scroungers in society are not working people and the youth, forced onto benefits by the destruction of jobs, but those multi-millionaires, the so-called risk takers who live in a limited corporate wealth, while the victims of this system face benefit cuts, stricter culinary rules and exclusion. And then there are the working poor, the suppression of wages in both the public and the private sector, and a relentless driving down of living standards. Public sector workers, the loss of up to 20% of the value of their wages since 2008. As one of our low-paid members summed it up at a meeting recently, there's too much month left at the end of the money. We all know universal credit is an unmitigated disaster, and the statistics of that show that 40% of DWP workers who administer it will be on universal credit ourselves. Colleagues, we know that public servants face a double whammy on living standards, and we all know their lies. Public servants are lazy, they're inefficient, they're costly. Public services are rubbish, and only the private sector can deliver. All these ideologically driven falsehoods are the reverse of the truth. They bid to maximise profits. Their aim is to cut as much of the public service as possible, to hold down wages and prime us all up for privatisation. On that basis, they're sending a clear message. We don't want you, we don't need you, we don't value you. The pension strike demonstrated not only the tremendous desire of members to fight back, as we saw today walking around this shopping centre, the overwhelming support of the wider public, because they know that we're taking action in defence of all working people, not just in our own interest. Colleagues, we can break this pay freeze, and we can build the fight on jobs and privatisation too. No more leading up the hill only to go straight back down. No more excuses. We stay united, we stay organised, and we stay out until we win. And we stay out until we change this society. Colleagues, one of our call centre reps said today on the picket line, strange that a millionaire who's just had an 11% pay rise and whose family have made their fortune in tax havens can't see the point of striking. Never has a government been so divorced from the lives of ordinary people. We strike because there is no choice, and we will continue until we win. Solidarity.
Thank you very much, Janice, for that. Next, I'd like to welcome Sarah Lake. Sarah is a teacher from Sunderland who is taking part in industrial action today. So if we could give a very, very warm welcome to Sarah.
To bring you kids here today. We teachers have gone into our profession because we think children are the future of this country, and we want to do our best for them. What would have happened today if your child had gone to school? What would your teacher have been teaching them? Would he or she have taken them back to the new national curriculum? We now have to revert to a 1950s style curriculum of rote learning, sitting in rows, learning facts, learning particularly about the British Empire. This is what the government wants for our children. If your child had gone to school today, what would he or she have been taught? Would he or she have had preparation of SATs tests? My son's just finishing year 6. His whole school year has been spent preparing for his SATs. Well, all they teach us is how well the school's doing in comparison to other local schools. They're a nightmare. My daughter, she's over there, she finished her year 2 last year. Before that, she spent an entire year preparing for phonics tests. Again, another useless test, not devised by teachers, not devised by educationalists, but devised by Michael Gove and his cronies in Whitehall. Well, I agree. If your child had gone to school today, would she have had a teacher? Would she have had a support assistant? They're fantastic. They're worth the weight in gold. But they're not the same as having a teacher in front of your child all day, every day. We're having fewer and fewer teachers taught full-time, teaching full-time now, in front of a class. The most vulnerable kids are the ones who are least likely to get a teacher in front of them every day, all day. Were your child in school today, how confident would your teacher be, her teacher be feeling? We're seeing an attack on our profession on a more or less weekly basis. The most ludicrous things suggested: we're feckless, we're lazy, we're not a patch on our private sector colleagues. Quite early in his career as head of Ofsted, Michael Wilshaw said that unless morale was rock bottom in the staff room, then your head teacher wasn't doing their job properly. Imagine saying that. Morale needs to be rock bottom before a teacher is really going to work at their very best. When your child goes back to school tomorrow, how old will their teacher be? Well, I'm 43 and I'm feeling I've been doing this job for quite a while now. Michael Gove says I need to be there till 68. Well, I don't see myself dealing with challenging teenagers, my primary colleagues on the carpet, playing with 3-year-olds, and then going home to perhaps 5 or 6 hours of work a night. If a teacher was in school today, how tired would they be? Well, a government-owned survey last year said that primary teachers are working for 60 hours a week. Secondary teachers working for 56 hours or more a week. It's not sustainable. It's not ludicrous. Teachers are dead on their feet. Our children and young people deserve better. This government has displayed nothing but contempt for teachers, all public sector workers and for our children. The time's come to say no to this contempt and to stand up for education. Hey! Say no to 1% to stand up for education.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Our next speaker is from Unite and is Mike Routledge.
Comrades, despite what some would have you believe, this is not a battle between public and private sector workers. It's a struggle for all workers. Only a couple of miles from here, we're standing together with our Unite members at Tyneside Safety Glass, who have joined us today. And they're on their 3rd week of strike. Today, Unite local government workers are taking action alongside government workers from Unison, GMB, school support staff, teachers in the NUT, civil servants in the PCS and firefighters in the FBU. Public sector workers have had enough. Not allowing a good crisis to go to waste, this condemned government are wreaking untold damage on our services in the North East. Their aggressive and unnecessary spending cuts have destroyed local services. Poverty is increasing. Nearly 1 million people are using food banks. Real wages are stagnating. And into this toxic environment, the demand on our public services has grown. And as local government workers, you've been cut in the workforce. They've cut your resources, and now they want to cut your pay. Local government workers empty the bins, clean the streets, maintain the roads and footpaths, provide care and protection for our children and for our old people, run youth services and libraries where they're still open, provide housing advice and repair council housing, and much, much more. In short, they provide everything a local area needs to keep our communities safe, in which people can enjoy their lives. And how are they rewarded? Well, you get a pay cut, or you don't get a pay rise for 4 years. Thousands earn less than a living wage. Over 400,000 earn less than 15,000 a year in local government. That's a disgrace. We've had reports from members who are struggling to make ends meet. They're having to choose between heating and eating, unable to make it through the month without turning to the wonders of this world. Comrades, this is the reality of low-paid local government workers today. That is why we've had to take action.
Thank you very much. Our last speaker is Andy Noble from the FBU. Just before Andy comes in, and hopefully not stealing his thunder, today is the 14th day of action for our colleagues in the FBU, and they are about to announce another 8 days of action. So I'd ask that you give a very, very, very warm welcome to Andy from the FBU.
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, can I take the opportunity to pass on a message of solidarity from all Fire Brigade Union members in Northumberland, Tyne and Wear, Durham and Darlington and Cleveland. As you'll probably be aware, the FBU were involved in a long-running dispute with the Westminster government over pensions, but equally like others in the public sector, we're fighting what seems like a constant battle against the erosion of essential public services. In our case, an emergency blue light service that the people turn to in the time of greatest need. Both our pensions dispute and the cuts in the fire and rescue service are as a direct result of the coalition's imposition of austerity measures. Measures which continue to impact not just on firefighters and other public servants, but on those in the private sector who use those services, such as health, education, social services, all the emergency services and countless others. Cuts in the fire and rescue service in this region have manifested themselves in the announcement that almost 300 firefighter posts, that's operational firefighter posts, will disappear within the next 3 years. Fire stations have been earmarked for closure, and firefighting appliances have been removed from the operational fleet, and that's actually started as we speak. All of these measures lead to increased attendance times and a decrease in the effectiveness of the fire and rescue service. This will inevitably lead to an increase in risk, not just to the general public, but also to firefighters themselves. It's even resulted in one local fire and rescue service drafting plans to form a public service mutual, which we view as the first step towards eventual privatisation of the fire and rescue service. This is the first place in the UK where this kind of move is being made. I want to put it on record that we will fight that proposal by any means that we possibly can. The Fire Brigade's union opinion that the fire and rescue service should remain publicly owned, publicly funded and democratically governed. Put simply, in an attempt to balance the deficit, the coalition is placing the general public in greater danger, as well as those whose sole aim is to provide a service to protect that public. It's a sad reflection of the coalition's frame of mind that they're willing to appease investment bankers and hedge fund holders, and it's also a lesson in irony, given it was those very same people that caused the deficit in the first place. Not doctors, teachers, nurses, probation workers, firefighters or anybody else working in the public sector. The FBU, like all of you, have become so frustrated with Osborne's dogmatic approach, we've adopted the slogan, we save people, not banks. Some might say this slogan's a little corny, but the reality is austerity measures are reducing the fire and rescue service's ability to do the very job that it was set up to do. Simply to address the deficit to the satisfaction of the coalition, and to be frank, in a modern society, we're still a relatively wealthy nation, this is completely unacceptable. In fact, it's worse than that, it's absolutely disgusting. So when fire and rescue services locally publish the safety plans, trade unions, trade unionists, members of the public and community groups should take the opportunity to tell the fire and rescue services that cuts aren't welcome and that cuts cost lives. On our own pensions dispute, we, like many others, have opposed change, particularly where the change doesn't reflect the reality of the occupation. It's our view that any occupational pension scheme should reflect the nature of the occupation concerned, and in our case, we're absolutely a million miles away from that at the moment. What's on offer at the moment is unaffordable, unworkable, unsustainable and unfair. Just in closing, since we're talking about strikes, firefighters know better than most the impact of strikes. they see the impact of fires and other types of emergency every single day of their working lives. The last thing that a professional firefighter wants to do is take strike action. So you can get a sense of the level of frustration that firefighters currently feel. The fact that they feel strong enough to take strike action should give you a feeling around the determination that they have on the current pensions proposals, and I would like you to support them as they support you on today's demonstration and against the austerity measures of this Conservative government. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. And as I said before, that is the 14th day of action for those colleagues from the FBU. That's the end of our speakers. I'd like to thank all of the speakers. I'd like to say a big thank you to everybody who's turned up here today, but I think a massive, massive thank you to the million public sector workers who have come out in their strength today to say enough is enough. We know that we are on strike because of a pay restraint, but in a region that has been hit the hardest by austerity measures, where we all have a friend, a colleague or a family member who has lost their job, a friend or a family member who can't afford to eat, enough is enough. We have showed how solid we are in this region, and that through collectiveness we can and will deliver action. So colleagues, thank you very, very much for coming out today, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very, very much.